Hey friends, hope this finds you doing well. Now that we're into spring and Easter has just passed, I wanted to encourage you through a few devotionals about what it means to have new life in Christ and what does that look like. So Ephesians chapter number 4, let me read a few verses to you, beginning verse 17. He says, "Now this I say and testify in the Lord, that you must no longer walk as the Gentiles do in the futility of their minds. They are darkened in their understanding, alienated from the life of God because of the ignorance that is in them due to their hardness of heart. They have become callous and have given themselves up to sensuality, greedy to practice every kind of impurity. But that is not the way you learned Christ, assuming that you have heard about him and were taught in him as the truth is in Jesus, to put off your old self, which belongs to your former manner of life and is corrupt through deceitful desires, and to be renewed in the spirit of your mind, and to put on the new self, created after the likeness of God in true righteousness and holiness." Well, Paul wants the church to have a very clear understanding about the distinction between the unbeliever and the believer, the one who is still bound in the flesh and one who is a new creation. And so I think that it's really important to remember that, man, the unbeliever has a certain walk. He lives for himself. They follow their own sensual desires. Their understanding is darkened. So when you see sinners acting like sinners, don't be surprised about that, because that's who they are. He says they're darkened in their understanding. They're not seeing things clearly. They're alienated from the life of God. They don't have Christ as their life, as a source. Now, he's available to them through faith, but they're alienated because of their ignorance and the hardness of their heart. He says they've become callous, insensitive to even what is, right. He says they've given themselves up to sensuality. He says they're greedy to practice every kind of impurity. But he says, but that's not you. That's not what I taught you. That's not what I displayed to you and revealed to you, that which is available in Christ Jesus. Because when we are born again and receive Christ living in us, it's way more than just going to heaven when we die. It's becoming alive to God, to have his life in us, to become new creations. And as new creations, there's quite a contrast in the way that we live in the world. He says so in verse 22, put off your old self. Now, you don't put off in order to become a new creation. But listen, we learn behaviors and attitudes and have triggered responses that were all developed by the flesh and the old man and our sinful nature as unbelievers. But he's saying, now that you have a new life in Christ, all that stuff you just put off, no matter how natural it may seem, and no matter how easy it may seem to come to you. He says, now you put those things off, because those fit who you used to be. That was your former way of living, but that is not who you are. You no longer live for your deceitful desires. You see, because that's what the desires of the flesh are. They're deceitful. They rob you. They blind you. He says, but be renewed in the spirit of your minds. So friends, you need to take time as you start every day to remind yourself of the truth of who you are in Christ as a new creation, as the beloved child of God. Remind yourself, renew your mind, confess the truth of who you are, no matter how you feel, and no matter how you may even have acted that was contrary. It says, put on the new self, created after the likeness of God in true righteousness and holiness. So he says, who are you? That's what fits. What suits you as a child of God? And if it doesn't suit you, put it off. And as a matter of practice and devotion every day, say, Lord, thank you for making me your child and putting your life within me. And I do confess that I am yours. I remind myself that I am in the image of God. And my heart's desire today is that you might be evident living through me. Because as we live from him who is our source, it will be manifest in righteousness and true holiness. You see, he's making a contrast between the Pharisee, between the religious who tried to live in the name of God, for God, but in their own resources. And it's a false righteousness because it's a self-righteousness. It's a false holiness because it's man-centered. And when we allow Christ, who is our life, to live in us and to live through us, it looks like Jesus. And if some attitude or action or words were to come forth from us that are contrary to Jesus, then we say, oh no, I choose now to put that off. That is contrary to who he made me to be. And in the affirmative, I say, he is my life. And I release him now so that my life might look and sound like Jesus, full of love and joy and peace and patience and gentleness and kindness and goodness and self-control. I hope that you will renew your mind about who he has made you to be today. Well, let that settle in. I hope it encourages you. I hope that you'll share it with someone on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or some other medium. And let's get the good word out as we put off and we put on who we are. Love you. Have a great day.